At the core of this fear is a truth that is rarely said out loud. Jungkook was not destined to belong to HYBE from the start. His journey, before becoming the golden maknae, was shaped by choices, temptations, and offers that could have shifted everything. The idea that another producer, someone outside of HYBE, almost managed to secure him is the kind of what-if scenario that makes executives stay awake at night. It is not just about money. It is not just about contracts. It is about power, influence, and the irreplaceable value that Jungkook represents. For HYBE, Jungkook is more than an artist under their label. He is a brand, a movement, and a guarantee that their company name carries weight in every global conversation about music. To imagine him in someone else's camp is to imagine HYBE stripped of its most valuable asset. That is why the phrase "almost got Jungkook" is so dangerous. Because almost means it was close. Almost means there was a moment when the line between what is and what could have been blurred. And if history had tilted just slightly, HYBE would not be HYBE as we know it today. When we dig into the details of this fear, it becomes clear why Jungkook holds such an outsized role. HYBE's identity and dominance in the industry depend not only on the collective force of BTS, but also on the magnetism of individual members. And no member has demonstrated the kind of solo strength, crossover appeal, and artistic flexibility that Jungkook has. From his chart-topping solo projects to his collaborations, from the way brands fight to attach their names to him, to the way fans around the world push his name to the top of trending lists, it all points to one thing: Jungkook is not replaceable. This is exactly why the thought of losing him, especially to another producer, was HYBE's biggest nightmare. Because if Jungkook had aligned himself elsewhere, HYBE would have lost not just a member, but the very symbol of their global credibility. They would have lost the star that reassures investors, keeps the fan base loyal, and guarantees media coverage across continents. Losing Jungkook would have been like pulling the foundation out from under a skyscraper. Everything might still stand for a while, but the cracks would show, and eventually the collapse would come. It's important to understand the producer's angle here as well. For a producer outside of HYBE, Jungkook was not just another talented trainee. He was a once-in-a-generation find. His voice was raw yet polished, his dancing natural yet powerful, his presence magnetic even before debut. Producers know that kind of potential when they see it, and they move fast. The fact that Jungkook was even on their radar shows how undeniable his talent was. They were ready to craft him into a solo star, perhaps even faster than HYBE could envision. And for a moment, it looked like they could have succeeded. But this is where HYBE's desperation and fear intersect. The company could not afford to lose him. They saw what was at stake. They understood that Jungkook was not just a piece of their future, he was their future. He was the one who would ensure that BTS could rise beyond being a typical idol group, who would guarantee that their music could cross borders, and who would anchor HYBE's reputation long after trends shifted. That clarity turned into action, and HYBE secured him. Yet the fear never truly disappeared. Because once you know that something almost slipped away, you can never fully forget how fragile the whole system really is. This is why, to this day, HYBE guards Jungkook so tightly. Every decision around his career, every step he takes, is carefully calculated because they cannot afford another almost. They cannot allow anyone else to come close. Producers, labels, and industry power players still watch Jungkook, still hope for a chance, still dream about what they could do with him. And HYBE knows it. That knowledge is both a source of pride and a lingering fear. Pride, because it confirms that they have the crown jewel. Fear, because they realize how close they came to losing him before. This almost moment is not just history, it is a warning. It shows that even the strongest companies can be vulnerable when their most valuable asset is at stake. HYBE's empire was not inevitable. It could have fractured before it even began. And that fragility is what keeps them vigilant, what makes them move aggressively in protecting Jungkook's image, his projects, and his path forward. Because HYBE's biggest fear has always been the same: losing Jungkook. And the fact that one producer nearly made that fear real will always haunt them. There is something unique about Jungkook's trajectory that made him both vulnerable and desirable in those early days. He was young, impressionable, and still figuring out where his voice would fit in the larger landscape of K-pop. This was exactly the window of opportunity that other producers looked for. They could see in him a malleable star who could be shaped into something extraordinary. They weren't wrong. The only problem for them was that HYBE saw it too. And HYBE fought harder, perhaps harder than ever before, to make sure he didn't slip away. But this fear didn't end when Jungkook signed with HYBE. That almost has followed the company throughout his career, because almost means it could happen again in a different form. What if another label came with a deal too good to ignore? What if a Western producer offered him artistic freedom beyond what HYBE allows? What if Jungkook one day decided to take control of his career on his own terms? These questions are the silent echoes of that original moment when another producer nearly took him away. From a fan's perspective, it's easy to assume that Jungkook was always destined to be in BTS, to grow under HYBE, to become the figure he is today. But that's only hindsight. The reality is that stars like Jungkook don't belong to destiny, they belong to the decisions that shape them. And in that fragile period, the decision could have gone either way. HYBE's biggest fear is rooted in this vulnerability, because it reveals just how close they came to losing the very artist who defines them. It also explains why Jungkook's solo era is handled with a level of intensity that sometimes feels overwhelming. Every release, every collaboration, every appearance is scrutinized not only by fans, but also by HYBE itself. They are determined to maximize his impact while making sure no external influence gains too much control over him. It is a balancing act between letting Jungkook shine as the global superstar he is and ensuring that he remains tethered to the company that almost lost him once. The irony in all of this is that Jungkook himself seems less concerned about the corporate dynamics than the company does. His focus has always been on music, on growth, on delivering performances that feel honest and powerful. But HYBE cannot separate the artist from the asset. For them, Jungkook is both. And in their boardrooms, that fear lingers. What if another almost happens? This fear also explains why HYBE reacts so strongly whenever Jungkook is mentioned in connection with outside forces. Whether it's international producers trying to collaborate with him or brands aggressively chasing his image, HYBE sees it as more than just opportunities. They see it as risks. Risks that someone else might pull him away, or worse, dilute his connection to HYBE. That paranoia is not irrational, it's rooted in that original scare, when another producer almost succeeded. And let's be clear, if Jungkook had gone elsewhere, the entire DNA of BTS would be different. His voice is not just one layer in their songs, it is the glue that holds their sound together. His stage presence is not just another moving part, it is often the centerpiece that amplifies the group's energy. Remove Jungkook, and BTS doesn't sound the same, doesn't feel the same, doesn't dominate the same way. HYBE knows this. They know they built an empire on the foundation of a group that only works the way it does because of its unique chemistry. And Jungkook is at the heart of that chemistry. That is why HYBE's fear is not abstract. It is deeply personal to their success. Losing Jungkook would have been catastrophic, and even the memory of how close it came keeps that fear alive. Every time Jungkook trends worldwide, every time he breaks another streaming record, every time he becomes the face of a campaign that overshadows even global pop stars, HYBE is reminded of what they almost lost. It is a strange duality: pride and fear, success and paranoia, celebration and caution, all tied to one artist. The producer who almost got him might not have succeeded, but they left behind a shadow that follows Jungkook's career and HYBE's strategies. It's a reminder that no matter how powerful a company becomes, there is always vulnerability where true talent is concerned. And Jungkook, more than anyone else, embodies that vulnerability. Because he is too big, too impactful, too irreplaceable to ever truly be safe from the desires of others who want him. HYBE's biggest fear will always be Jungkook, not because he is a weakness, but because he is their greatest strength. And strength, when threatened, creates the deepest kind of fear. The weight of this fear isn't just about Jungkook's past, it's about his present and future. Every step he takes now proves that HYBE was right to fight for him, but it also deepens the knowledge that he is their most fragile point of security. In business, fragility doesn't always mean weakness, it can mean dependence. HYBE depends on Jungkook in ways that go beyond what they admit publicly. Without him, the narrative of BTS would falter. The dominance of HYBE in global music would weaken, and the stability of their brand empire would take a hit that might never fully heal. This explains the calculated way HYBE protects his trajectory. They know Jungkook is not just one of 7 members. He is the voice that brings songs to life, the performer who consistently draws eyes, and the figure whose solo journey mirrors the company's global ambitions. Jungkook is the face they use to enter markets that once seemed impossible. He is the reassurance they offer investors when they ask about longevity beyond group activities. He is the dream collaborator for international producers who see him as the bridge between East and West. Every time his name is spoken, it reinforces HYBE's dominance. And every time it is linked with someone outside HYBE, it reignites their oldest fear. Consider the psychology of almost. It is not failure, but it is close enough to scar. In Jungkook's case, almost was enough to mark HYBE's strategies permanently. They act as if they are still fighting to keep him, even though he is signed, loyal, and thriving under their banner. That paranoia creates both opportunity and limitation. It drives HYBE to invest heavily in him, to prioritize his visibility, to make him the centerpiece of campaigns that shape culture. But it also cages him in a system where freedom is balanced against corporate fear. The producer who almost secured him will likely never have another chance, but their existence shaped the entire arc of Jungkook's career. If Jungkook had gone with them, perhaps he would have been pushed into a faster solo debut. Perhaps he would have been branded differently, marketed as a singular force instead of the youngest in a team. But speculation aside, the undeniable fact is this: HYBE knew they could not survive without him, so they made sure no one else would. This is why Jungkook's presence in BTS is more than just history, it is strategy. HYBE built their empire around him, whether they admit it or not, and deep down they know the truth. Their biggest fear almost came true once, and it could still take new forms in the future. Fans may never fully see the inner boardroom conversations, the negotiations, the quiet panic that must have unfolded when Jungkook was being courted by someone else. But you don't need to see the documents to understand the reality. Just look at how HYBE treats him. Look at how he is placed in the center of every defining moment. Look at how he is both the artist they promote endlessly and the asset they guard relentlessly. That is not just love. That is fear. Fear of losing the one person they cannot afford to lose. When you strip it all down, HYBE's greatest triumph is not simply debuting BTS, it is keeping Jungkook. And their greatest fear is not simply competition in the industry. It is the reminder that they almost didn't. That fear defines them as much as their success does. And as long as Jungkook stands at the center of their world, that Shadow the producer who almost got him will never disappear.